When J.J. Brown began working as assistant to the Dean of Students at Appalachian State University in 1993, things were a bit different than they are now. Bill Clinton was in the White House. Jurassic Park stole the box office. Seinfeld and Cheers led primetime television. Dial-up AOL was how America got online. And student enrollment at Appalachian State was around 12,000. Today, Brown is now in his 7th year as Dean of Students. Enrollment at App State is around 17,000, with a goal of 20,000 by 2020. And while the responsibilities of being dean have not changed, situations have. Among today's most pressing student-related matters at App State are safety, diversity, and the delicate task of dealing with student deaths. I sat down with Dean Brown to talk about these issues, the effects they have had on the Appalachian State community, and what is currently being done to address them moving forward.
2 weeks.
Okay.
When he is not working from one of his 2 offices, Dean Brown can often be seen around the Appalachian State University campus, interacting with students and their families, like here at a recent freshman orientation barbecue, where he can get to know the new faces of the roughly 4,500 incoming freshmen and transfer students who will call App State their home for the next 2 to 4 years. During that time, a priority is to make sure that their college experience is as safe and rewarding as it is educational. Safety is a big issue on this campus and all college campuses because it encompasses so much. Alcohol and drugs, for example. Recent reports both nationally and locally point to a surge in the use of hard drugs like heroin. Have we seen evidence of this heroin problem on our campus?
It's a great question, Shannon, and it's something that I worry about every night. And I'm thinking about impact on our community. So we have a local law enforcement meeting every year, and we start that. We have that in July. They gave us an update on drugs in our community this past year, and talking about impact on heroin specifically. And they've talked about it being an increase nationwide, and even where it comes from, and it's coming out of Charlotte specifically is one of the things that they shared with us. And we probably had 2 or 3 situations that have come forward through the Office of Student Conduct involving heroin specifically. So I would say it's rare that we see it. It's one of the things I worry about the most is hard drugs and the impact on our community and students that may be struggling with that.
What are we doing to educate our student body on this? If it is coming from Charlotte and North Carolina is seeing this increase, it's still a problem.
It is, and that's one of the pieces that we've added the last several years. We actually added a new session at orientation. We're talking about drugs, and we talk about alcohol during the summer orientation, but during the Welcome Week events, we added a new program called I Am Appalachian, and it's really student-focused, and it's been emceed by 2 students. And we really want to talk about who we are as a community, and we talk directly about alcohol use, high-risk drinking. We talk about drugs specifically. Alcohol and marijuana are the 2 pieces that we see the most in student conduct, but we want to talk about hard drugs as well and resources. We have a licensed alcohol and drug counselor on our campus in our wellness center. He is seeing students who are using hard drugs, and he's providing support to them and resources to them as they're navigating where they are. It's a very small number that are seeking out that, but it's certainly something that we're really cognizant of and thinking about the impact and want to talk about it early on through our orientation programming, but also through a number of different other programs that we've implemented.
Since you mentioned orientation, how important is that we're reaching out to the students there, especially on these issues like student safety and alcohol and drugs?
Orientation is such an important time to educate about resources and support and have some of these conversations, but it can't be the only conversation. Particularly, I think about students' first year. We know the first 6 to 8 weeks is really important that they get connected to something on campus, and we really want to build opportunities for students to get connected, to become part of the fabric of who we are as an institution. So how we do that and how we build upon all of that is really, really important from orientation on into the start of a semester.
So after orientation, once they're here, you mentioned the first 6 to 8 weeks. Studies show that those first couple of weeks are extremely critical to the acclimation of students to the entire campus. How does the university work with these freshmen and transfer students to kind of acclimate them to the culture here?
Well, it's a huge network of connections, and we want to try to support students. So when students first arrive on campus, I think about our Apple Corps leaders who are introducing them to a number of those programs that first week, particularly that first weekend. In terms of activities, I think about Club Expo and how important that is for students to get connected, to really see literally 300 student organizations all throughout the Convocation Center. I think about the role of our RAs, the resident assistants on every floor of the residence halls, play really key roles of going and knocking on doors. When I was a new student many years ago, I was an out-of-state student. I didn't know anybody at my institution, and my RA had an incredible impact on me by just gathering us to eat dinner and people on my floor to eat dinner, and that led to so many different connections. And we know Appalachian in and of itself is bigger than many students' hometowns, so how we build that personal connection, that deep level engagement that we're known for is really, really important in thinking about how do they navigate the first 6 to 8 weeks, and where does that launch them for other things the rest of their first semester and first year in particular.
A 2013 news article outlined the long history of problems at App State regarding the response or lack of it to sexual assaults. One of our own professors here conducted studies that showed there may be as many as 60 sexual assaults in a year, but the university reported much lower numbers. Do you think that that's accurate?
You look at the national data, and it's been the case for 20 years. 1 in 6 women nationally are survivors of sexual assault in their lifetime. You look at the collegiate data, is 1 in 4 to 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted in their collegiate experiences. You translate that out into our community, and you certainly would be greater than the number of 60 as it relates to impact here at Appalachian. I think one of the pieces that we want to focus in on is reporting, and that certainly is the stigmas. And you look nationally at the numbers that are reported nationwide, and certainly here at Appalachian as well, they're low, and they've been low for a long time. And our focus as an Interpersonal Violence Council and our work here at Appalachian is to increase that reporting and enhance that environment where individuals come forward to report to their experiences of interpersonal violence.
So why do you, as Dean of Students, think that students do not report sexual assault?
Oh goodness, there's all kinds of different reasons why folks don't report sexual assault on a multitude of levels. And you think about stigmas that are related to coming forward, and am I going to be believed? Are people going to blame me? Are people going to blame me for perhaps what I wore? Are they going to blame me for perhaps because of the location where this happened in different ways? Is somebody in law enforcement going to trust me? What is it going to be involved? What's the process like in telling my story? There's all kinds of stigmas that really impact survivors from coming forward in different ways, and that's really where we really want to try to break that stigma. And how do we come forward? And you think about, how do we change this culture? How do we change this environment? We've got to be in it for the long haul, and we've got to be committed to doing all kinds of things as an institution to allow a safe place for folks to come forward. First and foremost, we want to make sure that any survivor has support, and then certainly how they want to report that. There's different options in which on our campus and our community members can do that.
We'll have more of my interview with Appalachian State University Dean of Students J.J. Brown after this.
I knew I wanted to go to graduate school. Didn't necessarily know it was going to be at Appalachian State, but I knew it was the perfect place to continue what I really wanted to do, and that was work on next generation technology. When I served in the Army, I learned very early on that everybody needs to be a leader. To really take that drive to want to be a leader and have a project of your own and carry it forward is really what got me excited and wanted to be here at Appalachian State University.
Appalachian State University's student population is approximately 85% white, compared to an average of 59% across all 17 campuses within the UNC system. To say that there is a lack of balance and diversity at App State is an understatement, one that Dean of Students J.J. Brown, like many others here, are reminded of regularly. Appalachian State has not been known to have the most diverse campus. In fact, we have just 14% of our population, or fewer than 3,000 students of color here. What would you say to a prospective student who's thinking about coming to App, who might be in the minority racially, ethnically, or a member of the LGBT community?
I would want them first to talk to other students, particularly students of color, or go by our LGBT Center and talk to students who are engaged, that come from marginalized backgrounds, to see what is it really like here in Boone? What is it like to be a student in Appalachian? Because we want them ultimately, for their own success, to pick the best school for them. Ultimately, I'd love to see them here as a Mountaineer, but want them to make a best decision and understand some of the challenges that we have here on our campus.
So what is the university doing to attract more minority faculty members and students?
In student development specifically, that's been an intentional goal for us, and how we use language and job descriptions, where we promote jobs within our division, and how we advertise that to recruit a strong applicant pool, a diverse applicant pool. And ultimately, how do we make some hires that are strategic in terms of thinking about our commitment as a division to diversity and inclusion? How do we think about our students and having someone for them to connect to that looks like them, that has experiences like them, is really, really important. The university at large is also doing a number of things along those lines as well, because we have to improve. Our student body demographically does not represent the world today. So we've got to recruit students from diverse backgrounds, but we also have to have faculty and staff to support them as well, because our faculty staff data also does not reflect the world today either.
Why do you think that students don't want to come to Appalachian that are students of color?
I think there are a number of challenges related to a rural environment. I hear so much from students about what is there to do. I hear from students that go to Charlotte a lot on the weekends to engage support. I think about family as well, and wanting to connect with family. I hear from our faculty staff in particular, and some of our staff that we've hired in student development, about challenges of being in a rural area. And we've got to improve through a number of different ways to recruit, but more importantly to retain diverse members of our community.
Once minority students come to Appalachian, how is the university working to improve their lives as a student here?
To me, one of the most important things we can do is related to training. And how do we train faculty staff to navigate challenging situations, to be more inclusive in their language, but it also relates to training for students and what we expect as an institution. But again, how are we preparing our students to go out and serve the world in any number of things? On
that training for students, what role does educating the larger student body as a whole play in the process of improving diversity here?
I think the training piece is huge for the larger student body. Again, you think about the world today. We want you to go out and be successful and go wherever in the world that you want to go, and it doesn't reflect Boone, North Carolina in terms of how, I think that's an ethical responsibility that we have as an institution to be providing those resources, that training, that support, but also a safe place to have these tough conversations. And some of these conversations are tough. When you think about, we're a predominantly white institution, and many of our students have come from predominantly white communities in the state of North Carolina as well. So we've got to meet students where they are and have these hard conversations in this safe manner here at Appalachian.
Students will sometimes say, we've had the conversations. How do we now push forward past the conversation phase?
That's exactly what I'm hearing constantly, Shannon, and was in meeting with students and the chancellor recently in talking about this very point. We have to have action items, and Benji Jane, who's our Chief Diversity Officer, identified 14 priorities, and we're working through those 14 priorities. But we've got to be more transparent as an institution, and I'm hoping that we can have a website where we talk about those particular initiatives, where we stand, and how we're moving forward. But it doesn't stop with those 14 initiatives. We have a lot more to do.
North Carolina passed House Bill 2, a controversial bill that some say leads to discrimination against the LGBT community. In what way can the university communicate in support to the LGBT students who might feel uncomfortable in light of these events?
Appalachians had made a commitment to be a welcoming, inclusive community. But it's important that we retain that commitment to supporting all here at Appalachian. And we've got questions about what does this mean? What does House Bill 2 mean for us in our community? But I certainly know, I speak for myself, I want to stand by our LGBT community and all our students to focus on how do we make sure that we do the right things moving forward.
Well, as an educational institution, what responsibility does the university have to speak out more broadly for tolerance and inclusion at the state level when issues like this arise?
I think one of the amazing things that I've learned since I came to North Carolina several years ago is the incredible network we have within the University of North Carolina system schools and our sister institutions. We have to work together, and we have to have a unified voice as it relates to these challenges at the state level. And I think that's a powerful voice when you think about over 200,000 students within the UNC system that are part of this community. We have a powerful voice, and working with legislators and our Board of Governors and other pieces to make sure that we don't take steps backwards as it relates to thinking about how we support our students on each of our campuses.
Over the past several years, we have seen a number of protests on different issues on campus, including diversity and race. Many of these protests have called to administration to take actions on various issues. How do you think administration replies to these?
I think it's important that we listen to students, and I actually like protests. I think it's a powerful message in terms of thinking about how do we improve our community. I think about protests that have happened on our campus. It intersects with conversations nationally. It's important for us to embrace those conversations, and how do we apply it to our community. And I will always stand with protests to make sure that students can use their voice, because it's a powerful voice, and I think it's really important in this learning and growth process that we hope to provide as an educational institution.
Well, these students are trying to raise awareness on an issue, and a lot of the times administration has not issued a response about it. How do you think that makes these students feel about how important their voice is?
I think that's where we've got to get better as an institution related to transparency. That's something that has come up time and time again with students. How do we share information about how decisions are made? Ultimately, it's involving students in our process, and I think that's really, really important. But I also know that in my role as Dean of Students, I need to make sure I help make connections to what students are saying through a protest or through individual conversations on Sanford Mall or other locations, and really connect them to our university cabinet, because I think that's really where our students want to hear from, our university cabinet, and specifically our chancellor. And we want to help our chancellor do those things and communicate those pieces. But to me, that's part of the transparency piece of where we can be better.
We'll be back with the conclusion of my conversation with Appalachian State University Dean of Students J.J. Brown after this.
We are really pushing our students to think about things from a local to global standpoint, and I enjoy teaching those classes. It certainly cements everything that I believe in, that I think is important. I'm passionate about sustainability. I'm passionate about fresh water and protecting it. When you've got, the number of faculty that we do living that sustainable life, demonstrating to our students, they realize it's not just something we're saying in the classroom, it's in everything we do here. It's part of who we are.
Nowhere in recent years has the Appalachian State community suffered more tragedy and loss than that which took place during the 2014-2015 academic year. During that time, a total of 9 student deaths occurred, leaving many fellow students, faculty, and staff afflicted and also frustrated at how those details about these deaths were passed along to the App State community. Since then, changes in protocol have been put in place related to the death of a student, both on and off campus. In my continuing conversation with Dean of Students J.J. Brown, he discusses that moving forward, there will not only be a better handling of communication in the wake of such a tragedy, but also an improved support system to help those most affected. The 2014-15 school year was an especially difficult time. We lost 9 students, and we had several reports of sexual assault. How did the events of that year affect the way that administrators saw issues of student safety?
It has a giant ripple effect, I think, on our community. So as a campus, when we think about safety and safety issues, it certainly highlights that every student matters. Big things, little things that we do as a campus, it takes all of us to keep our students safe, to provide an environment for them, to have resources, to support one another, to connect in meaningful ways that certainly allow them to know they're not alone with any challenge they may have. And certainly when you think about that ultimate loss and losing one of the members of our community, it's powerful to think about that impact. And to me, it's the heart of our safety concerns, and that's the worst thing that I certainly have navigated in my career.
You play a pretty large role when there are student deaths, correctly? How does the Dean of Students role go about that process?
In my role, I talk to each and every one of these families. So typically they're notified of their loss by local law enforcement, or it's a medical personnel in some capacity. And then I'm usually the first person at the university that speaks to them and offers our condolences as a university community. I serve as a point person for anything that they need in this journey. But it's hard. You think about this impact, and certainly for me personally as a parent, it has it hits home, because that's your greatest gift, is your loved one and your child.
There was a lot of people that felt the silence from the university and administrators when these student deaths did occur, and it was somewhat hurtful to the campus. Why did the university keep quiet during these times?
I think that's one of the hard parts about student death and student loss. I mean, and I think about particularly as it relates to social media, an impact on social media and aspects on playing that out with rumors and different pieces. You know, we're certainly confined on what we can say and how we can say it, and particularly when is that family notified. To me, that's the number one piece that we worried about, is when has that family been notified, and sometimes it takes a while to communicate and connect with a family member in that way and to get that confirmation. And then certainly that's when I reach out to those individuals. But a lot of people have questions about why. You know, why did this happen, or what happened, and certainly fair questions in terms of a loss. But there's a lot of questions we don't know. We could speculate, but I can't certainly comment on a speculation of what we think may have happened. The medical examiner is the only person that can really do the cause of death in particular, and as a policy, that's not something that we release as an institution. So it's walking a fine line of how do we support our students and how do we support our community, because students and you all want transparency, and we want to be transparent about pieces that happen, but there's also a lot of things that we can't say because we want to be respectful to that family, and we also don't want to speculate on something that we can't comment on for a number of different reasons. In the light of social media and all the different rumors that may be out there in different ways too.
The events of the 2014-15 school year were a shock to students as a whole regarding student deaths. Would you say that during that time the administration was prepared for this and knew exactly what to do and what procedures to carry out?
Anytime you lose a student and you think about a loss of a member of this community, it has an impact.
So was the student death policy revised or worked on after the 2014-15 school year?
Well, we had procedures in place and have had procedures and a protocol in place for a long time. We didn't have an official policy. So our official policy that's in our policy manual is new, and that was a direct outcome when we looked at our peer institutions that we needed. We needed a formal policy. In addition, we also needed to enhance our protocols, and that was twofold. One, we received a federal grant on suicide prevention, and we received this 3-year grant to train and educate on suicide prevention. And with that came the stipulation of you must have a student death policy and you must have a student death protocol. So some of these pieces were in the works. It was just really highlighted in the 2014-15 year that we needed to make this happen, and we had some work to do because of that challenging year.
Have you seen any positive effects thus far having that policy in there and having procedures in place?
It does. I think we're more intentional now with our protocol, with our postvention team, which is a new team that we've created. So we pull in a variety of individuals and think about the ripple effect. So who are members of our community that are impacted by a student death? So we pull in the department chair of which the student was majoring. We pull in colleagues from academic affairs, the counseling center. We pull in our Dean of Students team as well, and we talk through what happened, who is communicated. In this particular case, I communicate with those families, so I can report out on conversations with the family that may have taken place already and most likely has. And that's been a positive piece that's helped us grow because we're able to communicate more effectively and efficiently in a seamless way and have consistent information. Communication is a major change. For years here at Appalachian, we have sent a campus-wide email to all faculty, staff, and students anytime that we have lost a student. One of the pieces we think about the 2014-2015 year is we sent 9 of those messages out. And it had negative impact. It had negative impact on students that didn't know a student, and they felt guilty and were coming into the counseling center saying, I feel guilty that I didn't know this person. Here I am a part of this community and I didn't know them. What does that mean? And one of the pieces when we started researching our protocol and our policy is that we were the only school that was sending out a campus-wide message to all faculty, staff, and students. So we send out a message now as part of our process, but it goes to faculty in which the classes the student was enrolled, that immediate academic department where they were majoring, and then thinking about that ripple effect on maybe it's a residence hall floor, maybe it's certainly would involve roommates if they live on campus. If they're a member of a student organization, it would be that student organization and working with them. Where were those connection points for that student, and how do we make sure that we allow that community, that group to grieve, sign our memorial book, and support each other as a community through this loss.
So does the university feel that there are more negatives to being fully transparent on when there is a death of a student?
We saw that impact, and I think that's the thing that I struggled with, and philosophically I struggled with it in making that change. We talk about being a community, and we use that a lot here at Appalachian and what that means. I like the fact that we sent it out to the entire campus community, and I read the comments that people wrote in the student memorial book saying, I didn't know, this person, but they were a Mountaineer, and they'll always be a Mountaineer. And that's powerful when you think about what it means for community and how you grieve as a community together. So I struggled with this change, but I also know the impact that it has on students, and I saw that in the 2014-2015 year. And I don't want to have negative impact on students in that way either. So we've tried it. This is the first, we just finished the first year at which we've done it, and we're certainly always open to revising it and looking at it.
I want to thank my guest, Appalachian State University Dean of Students J.J. Brown, for taking the time to talk with us. I'm Shannon Carr, and for all of us here at App TV, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.